Can you believe it? They deactivated my badge at the very refinery I designed from the ground up. I'm talking every pipe, every valve, every single safety system. My baby. And just like that, I was locked out. The story is just as crazy as it sounds, so stick around because you're not going to believe how this all went down. It all started on a Tuesday morning. I drove up to the main gate, just like any other day for the past decade. I swiped my badge. Access denied. I tried again. Same thing. The security guard, a guy I'd shared coffee with hundreds of times, just shrugged and told me my access was revoked. No explanation, no warning. I was escorted off the property like I was some kind of criminal. I spent the rest of the day calling everyone I knew, from HR to my old department head. Radio silence. It was like I had become a ghost. My mind was racing. Did I do something wrong? Was there a mistake? I had poured my heart and soul into this project. This wasn't just a job. It was my legacy. For 10 years, I was the lead process engineer. I designed the initial schematics, oversaw the construction, and even trained the first batch of operators. I knew that place better than my own home. I knew its strengths, and more importantly, its weaknesses. And that's where the real trouble began. A few months before my unceremonious lockout, a new CFO had taken the helm. Let's call him Mr. Sterling. He came from a finance background, not engineering. His mantra was simple: cut costs, maximize profits. He saw safety protocols, maintenance schedules, and personnel as numbers on a spreadsheet, not as critical components of a highly complex and potentially dangerous operation. He started by slashing the maintenance budget. I fought him on it, tooth and nail. I showed him the data, the risk assessments. I explained that cutting corners on preventative maintenance for high-pressure systems was like playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded chamber. These weren't just theoretical risks, they were real possibilities. A failed valve here, a corroded pipe there. It could lead to a catastrophic failure. My warnings fell on deaf ears. He told me I was being overly cautious, and that my job was to engineer solutions, not create problems. The final straw was the new expansion project. They wanted to increase production by 20%, pushing the equipment far beyond its original design specifications. I ran the simulations. The models all pointed to one thing: disaster. The system couldn't handle the extra strain. The safety relief valves wouldn't be able to manage a potential overpressure event. I wrote a detailed report, a thick one, full of charts and technical data, and sent it directly to Mr. Sterling and the board. I practically begged them to reconsider, or at the very least, invest in the necessary upgrades to handle the increased load. His response: 2 weeks later, my badge stopped working. They didn't fire me, not officially, they just erased me. They put me on administrative leave indefinitely. It was a clear message: shut up and go away. They thought if they silenced the expert, the problem would magically disappear. They were wrong, very wrong. Being locked out was frustrating, but I couldn't just sit by and let a potential catastrophe unfold. My name was on those blueprints. My professional ethics, my conscience, wouldn't allow it. I knew the risks were real, and with the new expansion plans moving forward, it was a ticking time bomb. So, I did the only thing I could. I compiled all my reports, my simulations, my unanswered emails, and I made an anonymous call to OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I laid it all out for them. I told them exactly where to look, which systems were being pushed past their limits, and which maintenance logs had been conveniently adjusted. I wasn't trying to be a whistleblower for the sake of revenge. I was trying to prevent people from getting hurt. In a refinery, mistakes don't just cost money, they cost lives. A week after my call, I heard through the grapevine that 2 OSHA inspectors had shown up at the refinery, unannounced. They weren't there for a routine checkup. They came armed with specific information. They knew exactly which pressure vessels to inspect, which welds to check, and which safety valve records to demand. The plant went into immediate lockdown. This is where it gets good. The plant manager, a guy who had always backed me up in meetings but was too scared to cross the new CFO, was sweating bullets. He knew I was right. He knew the shortcuts they had been taking. But the real panic was happening up in the corporate tower. When news of the OSHA inspection hit Mr. Sterling's desk, he apparently lost it. My source, a friend in the accounting department, told me the CFO was in a full-blown meltdown. He was storming around his office, shouting on the phone. Why? Because an OSHA shutdown is a company's worst nightmare. We're talking massive fines, a complete halt in production, and a PR disaster of epic proportions. Every day, the refinery is offline costs millions of dollars in lost revenue. Suddenly, my overly cautious warnings didn't seem so ridiculous anymore. The OSHA inspectors were thorough. They spent 3 days combing through the facility. They found everything I told them they would find. The thinned pipe walls from delayed maintenance, the falsified safety logs, the inadequate relief systems for the planned expansion. The list of violations was long and severe. They slapped the company with a potential for imminent danger notice, which is about as serious as it gets. Production was ordered to halt immediately. The fallout was immense. The company's stock took a nosedive. The board of directors called an emergency meeting, and Mr. Sterling, the cost-cutting genius, he was suddenly facing questions he couldn't answer with a spreadsheet. He couldn't explain why he had ignored the repeated, documented warnings from his own lead engineer. Then my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but the voice on the other end was one I recognized immediately. It was the CEO, not the CFO, the big boss himself. He sounded humbled. He didn't apologize directly, not at first. He just said, "We need you to come in. Your badge has been reactivated. We have a big problem, and you're the only one who can help us fix it." Walking back onto that site was surreal. The place was eerily quiet. The usual hum of the machinery was gone. The same security guard who had watched me get escorted out now waved me through with a respectful nod. The plant manager met me at the door, and for the first time, he looked me in the eye and said, "You were right. I'm sorry I didn't back you up." The CEO and the remaining board members were waiting for me in the conference room. Mr. Sterling, the CFO, was conspicuously absent. I later learned he had been asked to resign, effective immediately. They laid out the OSHA report in front of me. It was a long list of everything I had warned them about. The CEO looked at me and said, "Tell us what we need to do to make this right." It was a long road. We had to shut down the expansion project and go back to the drawing board. We invested heavily in the upgrades I had originally proposed. We overhauled the entire maintenance schedule and safety protocols. It cost them a fortune, far more than it would have if they had just listened to me in the first place. But this time, cost wasn't the primary concern. Safety was. I was put in charge of the entire remediation project, with full authority and an almost unlimited budget. It felt good to be vindicated, but more importantly, it felt good to know the plant was finally safe. The people working there, their families, the surrounding community, they were all protected. This whole ordeal taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes doing the right thing means making powerful people angry. It means risking your career for your principles. In engineering, you can't compromise on safety. The laws of physics don't care about quarterly profits or stock prices. When you design and build something that can impact thousands of lives, you have a responsibility that goes beyond your job description. They tried to silence me, but in the end, the truth has a way of making itself heard. And in this case, it came knocking with an OSHA badge. So what do you think? Was I right to go to OSHA, or should I have just walked away? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. It's a tough ethical question. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more tales from the trenches of the industrial world. See you in the next one.